All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We're going to decode the hidden mechanics of the financial system you and I play in literally every single day. Because whether you realize it or not, we are all participating in a massive, incredibly complex game. And, well, like any game, if you don't know the rules, you're probably going to lose. So today, we are hyper-focused on the absolute fundamental mechanics of money and wealth.
To really understand these rules, let's start with a scenario we are all way too familiar with. Picture this. You've had a brutal month at work, just slaving away, right? You're lying in bed, you get that email saying you've been paid $2,000. Awesome. But wait, you open up your banking app and you see this jarring number staring right back at you. $1,456. Where on earth did the rest of it go?
Well, it got swallowed up by these invisible forces. You look at your pay stub and there are the usual suspects: federal income tax, state tax, Social Security, and Medicare. It's that fun modern ritual of just handing away a chunk of your cash to unseen entities who fully expect to thank you in return. But here's the crucial point. These invisible forces, while yes, incredibly annoying, are actually the cost of civilization. They're funding the roads we drive on, the schools, and making sure your favorite taco truck is up to code. You're also paying into Social Security, which is basically the government forcing you to save for your own retirement, and Medicare, a tax that supports older or seriously ill folks.
So, to understand exactly where your money goes and how to claim more of it back, we're going to hit 6 core pillars today: the baseline reality, the truth about banks, the silent engines, the trust economy, the value equation, and finally, the winning strategy.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the baseline reality, navigating the tax maze.
You know the drill. The government takes a little piece of almost every single transaction. Income tax hits what you earn, sales tax hits what you spend at the store, and capital gains tax hits the money your investments generate while you're asleep. Then, of course, comes actually filing your taxes. And honestly, this is the wildest part of the whole game. The government actually knows exactly how much you owe, but they make you guess. If you guess right, no worries. If you're wrong, you're cooked. But just to keep things in perspective here, countries with higher tax rates do generally provide a much higher quality of life across the board.
Moving right along to Section 2, the truth about banks. Middlemen, not dragons.
So the system we use is called fractional reserve banking. When you walk into a bank, hand the teller $1,000, and they smile and tell you it's safe in your account, that money is actually already gone. Banks are really just middlemen. They'll take, say, $900 of your $1,000 deposit and immediately lend it to someone who really wants to buy a jet ski. You represent the supply of money, and that borrower represents the demand. The bank is just making its profit by lending your cash out at a higher interest rate than whatever tiny fraction they pay you.
Now, you might be thinking, why on earth would I give them my money if they're just going to lend it out to some guy buying a jet ski? Well, despite all that, the system works. It completely relies on the assumption that we won't all show up to withdraw 100% of our cash at the exact same time, unless it's 2008, obviously. But generally, we trust them because carrying physical cash is a nightmare. They literally pay you interest just to keep it there. And most importantly, in the US, the government actually insures your deposits up to $250,000. So yeah, it's definitely safer than stashing cash in a shoebox under your bed.
Which brings us to our third section, the silent engines. We're talking interest, inflation, and recessions.
These are the forces just humming in the background, constantly working to either build your wealth or completely destroy it. Think of interest as money's way of charging rent to exist in someone else's hands. Now, simple interest is basically just a flat fee, but compound interest, oh, that is the ultimate cheat code. Every dollar you have gets clones, and then those clones get clones, and guess what? They all want rent. If you miss a credit card payment at 20% interest, compound interest is this slow burn that turns a $12 late-night burrito into a $50 financial fire. But on the flip side, if you're investing, it's duplicating your money until one day you wake up rich and maybe just a little bit smug about it. And then there's inflation. Have you ever opened a bag of chips, noticed it's literally half empty, checked your receipt, and realized you paid 30% more than you did last year? That is inflation. It's a silent thief slowly eroding the value of your cash. And why does it happen? Usually, it's because too many people have money and they all want to spend it on a limited supply of stuff. If 2,000 people want to buy a TV, but the store only has 1,000 TVs, the store is just going to jack up the price. Now, a little bit of inflation, like maybe 2% a year, is totally normal. But when it spikes, that's when your savings start to die. To cool down all that inflation, governments will step in and raise interest rates.
This makes borrowing way more expensive, which means people suddenly have less money to spend. And sometimes this sudden drop in spending triggers a recession. Think of the economy like a massive party. In a boom, everyone's dancing. The drinks are flowing, it's great. But eventually, reality hits. Someone checks their bank account, the lights flicker, and the DJ puts on sad lo-fi beats. Jobs vanish. People start saving instead of spending. It's a really painful reset, for sure, but it's a natural part of the economic cycle, and it is never permanent.
Let's pivot over to Section 4, the trust economy, credit scores and currency.
Brace yourself for this one. Money actually isn't real. I mean, the only difference between a dollar bill and a literal stick you find in your yard is just shared social belief. Humans developed money to make trading easier and to keep society organized. The government prints it, central banks regulate it so it doesn't turn into worthless monopoly money, but ultimately, a dollar only buys you a coffee because you and the barista collectively agree that it actually has value.
And because this whole system runs entirely on trust, lenders need a way to measure your trustworthiness. Enter that shadowy 3-digit algorithm, your credit score, ranging from 300 to 850. It decides if you get a house, a car, or if you get slapped with a soul-crushing 27% interest rate. If you're sitting below 580, lenders literally see you as a walking red flag. Over 750, you are sparkling with adult credibility.
When you break it down, your score doesn't actually measure how rich you are, it measures how reliable you are. Payment history is the massive one. Are you paying before things are late? Then they look at your credit utilization, the age of your accounts, the mix of loans you're juggling, and how often you're applying for new credit. And here's the kicker. You can have absolutely zero debt and still have a totally trash credit score just because you have no history. The game is rigged to measure trust based on these exact metrics.
All right, let's explore Section 5, the value equation. How wealth is actually created.
Building on that idea of currency as a belief system, let's do a little thought experiment. Imagine picking up a gray rock off the ground. Pretty much worthless, right? Now imagine picking up a shiny yellow rock. Gold. That gold isn't inherently worth more than the gray rock. It doesn't do anything special. It's just rarer, and humans place a massive perceived value on it. Whether it's Steve Jobs inventing the iPhone, surgeons saving lives, or Gucci charging 100 times more for a bag than Target does, wealth is generated by providing something humans perceive as highly valuable. If you can figure out how to create immense value, you will earn immense money.
Finally, we hit Section 6, the winning strategy, investing and time. Because inflation is constantly chewing up your cash, the only real way to fight back is to invest. Investing is simply telling your money to get off the couch and start working for you. You trade your cash for assets like stocks, which are just tiny slices of companies, or bonds, where you're loaning money out for interest. You can buy funds or real estate. And yeah, markets absolutely go up and down, and there's always risk involved. But the real danger isn't losing some money in a temporary market dip. The real danger is never investing at all and just watching inflation quietly steal your purchasing power year after year. And here is the secret sauce. The top earners out there use the absolute greatest force in wealth building: time. Most people trade 1 hour of their life for one paycheck. But ordinary people with totally modest paychecks can retire with 7 figures simply because they let their money multiply. They didn't beat the system, they just used it. They made consistent investments and gave compound growth 30 years to do its absolute magic. So, as you look at your own financial board game moving forward, ask yourself this one provocative question. Are you feeding the silent engine of compound interest by letting credit cards stack up? Or are you investing your money and letting that engine feed you? The rules of the game are set. Now it's just up to you how you play.